Hello, my name is Simone O'Callaghan and welcome to my presentation. Today I will be outlining the learning objectives for a first year Style Guide design project. Loretta Staples in the book The Education of an E-Designer said, "Students struggle to stay current, motivated by market opportunities, and are seduced by the powerful allure of the tools themselves. The digital has exploded our expectations, blurred our boundaries, and rendered obsolete what we thought we cared dearly about. What are now the basics in teaching and learning design?" Often I find that my students get caught up with learning Photoshop and Illustrator before they've really mastered the fundamentals of graphic design, like typography, colour and layout. Generally, students in the earlier years of their degrees tend to rush a little bit, launching straight into the tools rather than actually stepping back and taking the time to consider their designs. Style guides just slow this process down a bit and help them do that. I often find myself telling my students that the devil's in the detail, and have given many briefs where one component of them is a style guide, delivered partway through the semester. I find this works well because it enables a point of reflection for students, as well as ensuring that they think through all aspects of their projects, work to industry standards, understand the relationship between content, image, text and graphic elements, create their own designs and be able to communicate these to other designers, and understand the differences between print and web publication. Style guides help in teaching students to be observant, clear and focused in their approaches to visual communication. So an example of a brief I would set my students would be something like this. The National Trust of Australia has been awarded funding to create a series of booklets exploring the history of the Newcastle region. You have been chosen to design these booklets to provide information for visitors as well as locals who want to learn more about their past. So this sets a target audience, which is important for students to understand, so they focus outwardly rather than inwardly in their design. Choose a suburb that you have lived in or one that you are interested in and design a prototype booklet. Part 1 is to create a style guide for this series of booklets, so this is what we're focusing on here, this part 1 part of the brief. Part 2 would be the design of the actual prototype booklet itself. I've had a look at the University of Newcastle's website. The first 2 subjects are the Bachelor of Visual Communication Design, and the learning outcomes for visual design thinking are ones that are aligned with what I would be looking at in giving students a style guide design brief that is housed within a larger project. For the learning outcomes, 1. Conceive and design for a variety of visual communication formats. In this part of the brief, the focus is on print design, so skills will be developed in this through the style guide. As it is part of a larger project brief, the other formats can be addressed there. The second learning outcome is experiment with the interplay between content, image, type and graphic elements. A style guide actively encourages students to consider these aspects in their design, as well as enabling experimentation and opportunities for feedback. The third learning outcome is generate content for relevant design formats. The brief provides opportunities for students to develop and explore content and then deliver it in an appropriate format. The fourth learning outcome is complete design projects to an acceptable production standard. By working on a style guide before completing a final project, students are working to industry standards and practices, and then the feedback provided by me hopefully would enable them to produce production standards of a high level. It is important that students engage with the brief and that they enjoy the project and have the opportunity to use their imagination to creatively explore without inhibition. Therefore, it's vital that briefs take into consideration possible student circumstances. When I worked at Stevenson College in Edinburgh, I worked in an area called Sight Hill. It was designed in the 1960s, where the dominant vernacular was brutalist architecture. I had inherited a group of photography students who had been set a take-home assignment of photograph your street. Hardly any of them had done it, and I was confused because I knew the group to be motivated and they were enjoying the course. After weeks of nagging, I finally got the majority of them to submit something, but most of it was like this. Brutalist architecture does not age gracefully, and many of the students were ashamed of where they lived, and they didn't want this shown in class presentations. For this reason, I have opened up the brief to students to design for places that interest them as well, and ensure that if they want to keep their personal circumstances private, they can. For the Secret Suburban Histories Brief Part 1, students need to submit both hard and digital copies. The print version is so they show an understanding of creating work for print, while the digital version is for the virtual learning environment submission, such as Blackboard. So this also enables date stamping and ensures against loss. Digital versions are also helpful in sending to external examiners. A 5-minute presentation gives students the opportunity to discuss their work in front of an audience, which is a skill necessary for work in industry. So I would be expecting students to produce work along these lines. This work is by my students who are designing a tourist information app, and as part of their briefs, one of the deliverables was a style guide. You can see here that this is one spread of a style guide that actually had quite a few pages detailing all the design aspects of the brief. This slide here shows that the student could work well and had a good design aesthetic, but it did not include everything that was needed for another designer to take his designs forward. So it enabled me a chance to provide feedback for him to create a more complete project at a much higher standard in the end. Style guides are also useful from a teaching point of view, and assessing style guides enables educators to see where the gaps are in student understanding, not only for individuals but also in the cohort as a whole. It provides iterative feedback to the students for larger projects. They also enable you to nip any issues in the bud so that students can improve areas of weakness and develop their design skills. And they also encourage reflective practice through iteration of their designs where needed. The learning outcomes discussed today have been for a particular project, but the joy of Style Guide design briefs is that they can be tailored towards most graphic design courses. In this way, students gain core skills in managing design projects, paying attention to detail, and engaging in creative professional practice. Thank you.